Hi everyone, my name is Julianna, and today Daniela and I will be discussing childhood mental health concerns, as it is an ever-growing issue occurring in society. Before we begin, we will be doing a land acknowledgement, and this is in the area of Toronto, since this is where X University is located. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I'm just going to quickly go over the agenda before we begin today's video. So first, I will start off with an introduction provided with some quick facts. Then I will discuss the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects on childhood mental health. Then I will be discussing some challenges with the current system we have in place for those suffering. As well, I will finally go over some risk factors for childhood mental health. Then I will pass it over to Daniela, who will discuss changes in behavior, how to talk to children about mental health, caring for children's mental health, impacts of mental health conditions, and then she will provide some resources as well as some important points to remember at the end of the video. So childhood mental health disorders are at an all-time high, and the numbers just continue to increase at an alarming rate each year. Just in the last 10 years alone, among youth, there has been a 61% increase in emergency room visits and a 60% increase in hospitalizations for mental health disorders. The COVID-19 pandemic has had significant impacts on youth and their mental health, with the majority of children and youth reporting worsening mental health during each lockdown. Sick Kids has recently released new research on this study, and more on this will be explored later. To further prove that this is a concerning ongoing issue, 62% of Ontario youth report ever having concerns about their level of anxiety. However, only 32% have spoken to a mental health care professional about their anxiety. As well, as many as 1 in 5 children and youth in Ontario will experience some form of a mental health disorder, and 5 out of 6 of those children will not receive the proper treatment they need. Along with this, 70% of mental health problems have their onset during childhood. That's why it's important to catch it early on. As well, 28% of students report not knowing where to turn when they wanted to talk to someone about their mental health. It's important to provide children with the proper resources and prove that you can be a trustworthy person that they can come to if they are experiencing mental health issues. The following 2 slides are based on a report released by Sick Kids in July 2021. This is the most recent research they have on this issue. So its latest findings show a serious negative impact on the mental health of Ontario children, youth, and their families. This study included 2,700 participants from age 2 to 18. The researchers surveyed at different time points to understand how public health measures, including school closures, have impacted child and youth mental health and well-being. Along with this, the study also showed that over half of 758 children aged 8 to 12 years old and 70% of 520 adolescents reported clinically significant depressive symptoms during the second wave of COVID-19 that occurred during February to March 2021. Researchers of the study also found a strong association between time spent online learning and depression and anxiety symptoms in children aged 6 to 18 years old. Loss of school sports, extracurriculars, as well as in-school services such as healthy eating programs, counseling, and learning support worsened mental health outcomes for participants in this study. Along with this, lower-income households with children were disproportionately impacted, and these families experienced higher levels of mental health symptoms and distress. The study also concluded that increased screen time during the pandemic had a wide range of impacts on the mental health of children and youth. Increased screen time was associated with more irritability, hyperactivity, inattention, depression, and anxiety. The ongoing pandemic isn't the only challenge we face with mental health right now. There are also so many challenges within the system. 4 in 10 families do not receive the help they need or are still waiting for treatment. Many families who do seek help for their children are faced with systemic barriers that challenge their accessibility to services. The most common one is long wait times, which in Ontario right now could be over 6 months long, or the care is too expensive or inadequate. Inadequate care can include that some services do not cater to the specific needs of their child, the families are unsure of where to go to receive these services, or services are not offered where they live, and this most likely occurs in rural areas. One of the biggest problems is that over 63% of youth cite stigma as the most likely reason why they do not seek help. That's why it's important to advocate for mental health, not only just for children, but so the stigma can be decreased. Lastly, I'll be going over some risk factors, and there are currently 3 types of risks. These are individual risks, family risks, and external risks. To begin, individual risks include being of female gender, having a difficult temperament, low self-esteem, poor social skills, or isolation, as we saw in the Sick Kids study during the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving on to family risks, these include having a parent with depression, having parent-child conflict, parental illness or death, poor parenting / negative or toxic family environment, and child abuse. And there's also external risks such as peer rejection or bullying, traumatic events occurring to the child, sexual abuse, poverty, drug or alcohol abuse, especially with early use, or loss of a close relationship or friendship.
Changes in behavior. Changes in behavior can be very important at spotting potential mental health concerns, and by noticing these changes, it can open up the space to discuss mental health and ensure that the appropriate steps can be taken. It's important to notice the following: differences in a child's sleep schedule or eating habits, a difference in their overall mood, a difference in the way they perform day-to-day activities. This can be seen through their schoolwork, any extracurricular activities, or an avoidance of certain activities that they once loved. Issues with their concentration or memory, a difference in reactions to sensory input. This can be seen through sensitivity to light, sound, or other sensitivities that hadn't existed previously. Feelings of being distant from people or themselves, unusual thoughts such as thinking about unusual powers they have, feelings of anxiousness that can be projected onto others, a difference in overall behavior through actions or words that do not appear to be their own. If there are a few of these warning signs that are noticed, it can be beneficial to have a conversation with the child and speak to a professional. Talking to children about mental health. Talking to children about mental health is an important factor to consider, as it will teach them about the warning signs and how to take care of themselves. It will also create a known space that a child can go to if they need to talk. Ensure the conversation is age appropriate. With younger children, it's important to have conversations that they can handle. Provide them with appropriate information about what mental health is without having a conversation that's too heavy for them. It can be useful to have a comparison to physical health. By using examples such as how you would go to the doctor if you have the flu, you can compare it to looking after mental health. Sometimes you require a professional or a therapist to talk to. Discuss stigma. Stigma around mental health is a very prevalent issue and can have lasting effects, especially on people struggling with mental health. Therefore, have a conversation about stigma and its impacts and how these beliefs and depictions are inaccurate. Use known examples. Celebrities, TV shows, movies, characters, or even family members with known mental health conditions can help to normalize the topic of mental health and help a child understand a bit more. Look for signs of mental health conditions in a child. It's always important to discuss mental health with children. However, if signals of stress are apparent, this conversation can be more important so that the child knows there's a support system. Be sympathetic and understanding. Due to stigma, many children and adolescents often struggle to discuss mental health issues. Therefore, it's critical to be sympathetic and to encourage them to discuss their mental health. Caring for children's mental health. There are a variety of steps an adult can take in order to help care for a child's mental health even before concerns surface. First, ensure good relationships exist with the adults and children in their life. Nurture relationships by spending time and ensuring trust and care. Working on self-esteem is also important. This can be done by providing compliments such as "well done" to children when they do well, and teaching them about self-esteem can mitigate the risk factors for developing mental illness. There needs to be a safe space for children. Children need safe spaces that they can go to take care of their mental health, and this will also build a space of trust for them to come to you. Finally, problem solving. Learning how to problem solve is an important step for children's mental health. To work on problem solving, go over what the issue is with a child and talk about potential ways to solve it. This will also teach them not to panic when they see a problem so that they can rationalize it and find a solution. Other methods that can be considered for caring for children's mental health includes having mental health days. Similar to sick days from school or activities, having a mental health day when a child is under particular stresses can provide them the opportunity for self-care and to learn how to manage bad mental health days. Additionally, self-care is important. It is important to teach children about self-care. This can be done through teaching them to understand when they need to take a break and step away from something. You can also teach them to do things that they enjoy every day. You can teach them methods to de-stress and center themselves. And it's also important to teach them how to keep up a routine as a part of self-care. This includes sleep schedules, eating habits, and exercise. Impacts of childhood mental health conditions. There are various impacts that childhood mental health conditions can have, such as being ostracized from social interactions and peers. Students with mental health concerns may face exclusion from peers or may struggle to socialize due to symptoms of depression or social anxiety. This can impact how children socialize in the future as well. Discrimination from peers and adults is a prevalent issue. This is especially seen in a school system that may not provide the appropriate supports to the child. Additionally, a child may have issues in school. Children may struggle with focusing. This can be a result of sleep problems that lead to difficulties in paying attention or succeeding in school. They may also have issues with low levels of motivation due to symptoms of mental illness. Another issue they may face in school is socializing, which can be impacted by how they interact with peers due to stigma or mental illness symptoms. Another impact would be partaking in behaviors that can cause harm to the child. Due to impulsivity or other symptoms of mental illness, certain populations, such as teenagers, can be more at risk for certain behaviors that can cause harm. This can be seen through drug or alcohol use. Due to these experiences within the school environment, they can be impacted in how they view both themselves and school, which can cause further issues down the road. Another impact that affects children in a variety of ways is stigma. Stigma can lead to the worsening of mental illness symptoms, isolation and bullying from peers, or self-stigmatization. Due to internalized beliefs about mental illness, children may have negative beliefs about themselves. This can cause issues for children as they may not share their mental health concerns or avoid treatment altogether. Just to go over some resources, most important, it should be known that there is help and supports available. For an immediate mental health crisis, reach out to a crisis line for support. Another useful resource is For a Safer Space. For a Safer Space is a nonprofit that offers accessible and inclusive mental health care. Visit the website for more information if you would like to reach out for support for you or a child. To conclude, we're going to go over some important points to remember. First, childhood mental health is an ever-growing concern, especially with the ongoing pandemic. Reach out to your friends and family with children and check up on them. Many families do not know where to go to receive services for their children. It can be helpful to give community resources as a starting point. Changes in behavior are important to notice as they can signify potential mental health concerns. It's important to discuss mental health with children to deconstruct stigma and teach them about their own mental health. There are several steps that can be taken in order to care for a child's mental health before concerns develop. And finally, the impacts of mental health concerns can be seen through a variety of different ways that will impact the well-being of children. That concludes this presentation on childhood mental health. Thank you for watching.